Hey, this is Chris from EssentialSQL, and if you're using a view and want to avoid a common table maintenance pitfall, then you'll want to watch this video. Hey, if you like our videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Alright, let's get started. In this video, I'm going to go over a common pitfall that can happen when you define a view that is created. And to do this, I'm going to set up a hypothetical scenario. So let's pretend like we have a data process where we're pulling in three tables that have the same table structure from, like a legacy source system. One could be in North America, one in Europe, and one in Asia. We're going to do some transformations to clean the data, and then ultimately we want to present to our user that's going to be doing reports a unified view of that information. So to do this, I'm just going to use some simple tables so we can go through this. And our tables are T1, T2, and T3, and they're going to have the city and the ID. So let's just create these tables real quickly, and let me show you what this information looks like if we were to do a union command on them. And as you can see, we just have the ID and the city for each of these tables. Okay, so rather than have our users go through and do this union all the time, wouldn't it be super cool if we could just make a view for it? And we can. So I'm going to create a view that is essentially every column from table T1 and then every column from T2 and so on, and use that to create my view. Now you may be wondering, why am I using star? Well, because there's only two columns. Well, think about if this table is like 50 columns. Do you really want to maintain a list of all the columns for the table if they're all the same and you're essentially just bringing in the information? So the answer is you're probably going to use a star to help promote code maintainability. But there's a pitfall to this that we're going to show. So let's create this view. And now I create a view, and then let's select from it. So I'll just show you the command real quick, the use the view. So here we're going to use the view, and I can say select star from TV, and you can see I get ID and city. So it's the same thing as doing the union. All right, so far so good. So now let's assume a couple months have gone by, and the developers on the source system that we're pulling from decide to add a column and change a column. And this is what they do. They essentially come in and they add a column called stat, and then they create a column called city name. And of course, these people are in a totally different group. They don't talk to us, and things just change. And being on the receiving end, we need to adapt. So let's just drop our table and create it, and then we'll insert the rows, come back, insert these rows in, and then let's do it for the other two tables, because this is something that got rolled out across all of the system. I'm going to drop those, and we'll insert table 2, and then insert table 2. All right, and then just to make sure we got the new data in our system, we'll do a quick union query on them. And you can see now we have ID, stat, and city name. So far so good. But this is where things are going to start to fall apart. Because now what's going to happen when I do select star from TV? Does anybody have a guess? I would have thought when I run this it would error out, because it would go, hey, you changed the city name. So there's actually two things. I would guess it would error out because the city name changed, or it's just going to come back with the same results of the union, because after all, I am using select star. So it should come back and say, the columns are ID, stat, and city name. So let's run it and see what happens. You're going to be very surprised. First of all, there's no error. So that's, in a sense, bad. But worse yet, it's reporting wrong information. Notice how our query now is pulling back the ID, and instead of the city being, like Atlanta or London, it's actually the stat value. Holy smokes. So how's this going to work in our production system? We don't catch this, right? That's crazy, isn't it? So how is this happening? That's what I wanted to show you. So we're going to dig into the data dictionary to see how this is happening and give you some insight on this. All right, so let's go and look at the information schema view for our TV. So I'm going to bring in the view first so you can see what that looks like. And here you can see we have the view, and here is the view creation. Make it easier to create a view, create view as select star. So it has even brought in the comment for it. But the key thing here is it has the view definition as select star. So why isn't it just running that every time? It's actually an interesting question. Let's look at the columns to see if there's any columns here. When I look, there's no columns. So that's interesting as well. So you would really think that it's going to be leveraging that original view definition of select star to make things happen. So I thought, well, maybe information schema is being a little misleading. So I wanted to go look at the actual system table. And you can do this by looking at sys.view, sys.table, sys.objects. There's a whole bunch of these. So I'm going to look at sysviews, see our definition here, and then I want to look at the columns for this view, right? I could have made this a join, but I wanted to make it a little easier for us just to walk through. With the view, I have the name, and what I really need here is this object ID, and I'm going to pump this into this columns table here. And then let's just run this, and you can see that there are two columns, ID and city, and those are the columns that when I go and do the select on the view, right, select star from TV, those are the columns that come back, ID and city, and they come back in this order, right? So ID's first, city second. So this is what I'm thinking is happening, is that when the view is created, it goes out to the source tables. It goes, hey, this person said select star. Fair enough. It goes out to the source tables. It gets the definition for those source tables, which originally were ID and city. And then it preserves that definition in our view to be used for further queries. So that when we come in later and do this drop table command like this, we're basically pulling the rug out from underneath the view. And we're creating a new table with new columns, but the view definition does not know about it. But since the view definition was created with star, it's like I'll just grab the first two rows because that's what my definition says to do, and that's what it does. All right, so if I would have just had explicit column names in my view definition, where I said like create view, and then I said like select ID, comma city from T1, this wouldn't have happened because it would have gone, oh, city is no longer a column, and it would have just crashed out. But again, the reason we didn't do that was because we're in this like ETL process where there's like huge amounts of columns, and we're also working with code maintenance. So the other thing I wanted to look at is what would happen if I use the alter commands to alter the tables to add the column and change the name. If that command then would go and update the view definition. So in the next video we'll look at that.